What's up, everybody? It's Chris from the BrahjCast bringing you another kick-ass episode, and I'm not gonna lie, this is at least the 35th time I've recorded this introduction. Being quirky, being cool, being cute is just not my thing, so I'm gonna go ahead and just read the facts so we can get through it and get into this awesome show. This is the BrahjCast, and this is episode number 8. Today's guest, Wisconsin State Representative Melissa Sargent, and today's topic, amongst many other amazing things, the legalization of marijuana in the state of Wisconsin. Now, I've gotten that far without blowing it, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit my tagline. Let's just start the show.
And now, this is the moment BrahjCast fans listening around the world have been waiting for. Live from the BrahjCast studios in Mazomanie, Wisconsin, it's time! 1 hour of mind-blowing conversation for the podcasting championship of the world. Introducing first, casting out of his office corner, he is a Jiu-Jitsu Grandmaster and a black belt at Knowledge Bomb University, boasting a perfect podcasting record of 420 wins with 0 losses. He stands at 5 feet 11 inches tall, weighing in at 180 1/2 pounds, fighting out of Mazomanie, Wisconsin, introducing the reigning, defending, podcasting champion of the world, the BrahjCast's very own Christopher Michael Krerowicz.
Okay, cool. So we can just go ahead and flow right into this then. I mean, just welcome to the podcast. This is Representative Melissa Sargent. You're representing Assembly District 48. Can you please explain to me what that means?
Absolutely. So the 48th Assembly District is a portion, it's 1/99th of the state of Wisconsin. There's just under 60,000 people that live in 48th Assembly District, and it's made up of the north and east sides of the city of Madison, as well as the village of Maple Bluff. And as I said, there's 99 assembly districts in the state of Wisconsin. Each of them represents roughly the same amount of people. So some of the areas, for example, in northwestern Wisconsin have many counties, and there are some areas like mine where there are many representatives in one county.
So there's more than one Democratic and representative per county then, correct?
Here in Dane County, there are, there's many people who serve in the state legislature as state representatives and state senators, but up in, for example, northwestern Wisconsin, where population is less dense,
right?
Those folks would represent, quite frankly, many counties. And,
how long have you been representing?
So I have been in the Wisconsin State Assembly this is my 3rd term, so just about 5 years.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. The last 5 years have been crazy for politics.
Yeah, that's for sure. Ups and downs, and especially in this state too. And I'm not very familiar with all of the technical stuff, but it seems that this state is very red and Dane County is very blue. And what I mean is obviously is very Republican state. And I feel like Dane County is very Democratic. Am I correct in saying that?
I think that's a fair
assessment,
representation of our state. You know, I grew up here. One of the cool things about the district I represent is I live in the area that I grew up in, and now I'm raising my kids in this area. And I think that's pretty cool and unique. And the state has really changed a lot
That's one
And
thing I did want to ask you. Sorry to keep cutting you
you're
off
fine.
there.
I'm good.
Sorry.
This is great.
It's that is one thing I wanted to ask you is to kind of, if you don't mind, a quick few minute version of where you grew up, how you got into politics, because I believe you're homegrown, correct? Here
I am
in Madison.
homegrown. No puns intended.
Yeah, right. I guess so. Man, I didn't even plan that one. That's awesome. But yeah, if you could let the listeners and myself just get to know you a little bit better, who's representing us?
Yeah. So I was born and raised here in Madison. My parents were both from Wisconsin, but came to Madison to go to college and met each other and fell in love. It was the 60s. It was a crazy time for our state back then also. And when I was about 4 years old or so, they ended up getting divorced. And I think for a while, I felt like my story was pretty unique. I went to school on the Isthmus here in Madison, and most of my the people I went to school with, I guess my colleagues or my classmates, what you call it when you're 5 years old, I'm not exactly sure. It seemed like their families were like, there was a mom and a dad at home, and their lunch was packed, and they always had nice clothes and talked about taking vacations. And that wasn't really my life. I mean, I loved my life, but it was different than what it was that I thought everyone else's was like. But kids, they kind of think that the whole world revolves around them.
Yes.
In that big picture, right? So enough of that being 5, right? So I grew up here in Madison, graduated from East High School.
Nice.
And I then went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison and got my degree in psychology, and I never, frankly, imagined that I would be a lawmaker. I mean, the Capitol building was a building I went to on field trips.
Right.
Around downtown, it was that building you would cut through, you needed to one of my best memories of the Capitol building as a kid was they used to have these phone booths that were like wooden boxes with an accordion door that you could go into and sit down on a bench, and I would pretend I was making phone calls to
nice.
They aren't there anymore, but that was like, that's what the building was to me. It wasn't
right.
a law place. But frankly, I got pretty upset. I ended up running for the state legislature because in 2011, after Governor Walker was elected, I felt like the way our state's government was working wasn't what it was that my kids were being taught in school. I have 4 kids, by the way. They're all boys. That wasn't what my kids were taught in school about how government works or what I thought government was supposed to work like. And I think regardless of where it is that you fall on that political spectrum, who it is that you vote for, Republican or Democrat, the balance of government, the balance of the branches of government and the different parties involved in government, it's important, and it's supposed to be sticky and deliberative, and people are supposed to have thoughtful conversations, philosophical conversations about what's going to work and how to change it. And that's not what was happening when Governor Walker just out of the chute introduced this piece of legislation, and it was just sliding through, and there were hundreds of thousands of people walking around the Capitol kind of scratching their heads and asking, what is this? What's happening? And there was no response to that.
Right.
And frankly, I thought, we need more people in the Capitol building who are willing to talk to these people, these ordinary, everyday, fabulous people who live on our state, that make our state run every day, that drive our school buses and take care of our seniors and teach our kids and plow our streets. Like, we need to sit down and talk to folks, because at the end of the day, I think we all have more in common than what divides us. And our governor and our legislature wasn't honoring that. So I heard this little voice in my head that I used to hear when my dad was talking to me as a kid, and he said, Melissa, you have a couple options. One is complain, and you're really good at complaining. One of them is to completely disengage, go sit in a corner. And the other one is to offer up some solutions. Mm-hmm. And I decided, it's time to offer up solutions. So I ran for office, and that's how I got there.
Well, it's nice to know that because there's like a stigmata. I don't know if that's the correct word, but when a lot of people think of politicians, they just think of like shifty, beady-eyed person, just born and raised in politics, and just groomed to be a politician and blah, 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 like that kind of negative stigmata. So it's really nice to know that you were basically just like, I don't want to say basically, you're just like a person just like you, or just like me and my family, me and my friends, and just heard that voice in your head that said, you know what, I got to do something about this. And a lot of us, I think, have that voice in our head say we should do something about this, but unfortunately not all of us do something about it. So I commend you on on following that. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of the reason why it is that we're here, whether we're talking at the state level or the federal level, or even if we're just talking about our impact on the earth that's around us and our dependence on it, and for future generations, there's a lot we can do, but it seems so big, right?
Yeah,
like where do you take your bite, and how big of a bite do you take so that it doesn't eat you up?
Mm-hmm.
You're actually making an impact on it rather than it swallowing you. And that's tough. It certainly is. But you got to give it a chance. You got to roll up your sleeves when you hear that voice, and you got to dive in and believe that there's people around you that are, they're going to support you. And you're going at it with this podcast, and everyone's got their way that they're going to be making a difference. So find something that makes your heart beat a little bit faster.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it.
Exactly. What does it take to run? And was that like your first time ever like running for something, or were you like in high school? Were you like president of the Glee Club or like anything? Have you ever ran for anything before that?
Yeah, that's a funny question. So in high school, I would have just assumed stand in a corner where it was very and like no one noticed me. I was a real quiet girl, and I'm very introverted actually, and that surprises folks as an elected official. So it did take me quite a while to realize that the passion and my righteous, that kind of that inner righteousness that I hear when things happen around me, we all have that voice that kind of speaks up, but I needed to find a way to use that. I was in fact elected to public office the first time to represent the Dane County on the Dane County Board of Supervisors. And I was running for office and campaigning about 9 years ago. I had, or 8 years ago, I'm sorry. I just had a baby, and my baby turns 8 next week. So he was a newborn when I was doing that. So my political career is as old as my youngest son. So I've been doing it for about 8 years. I served 2 terms on the county board, and then now I'm in my 3rd term in the state legislature. There was a little overlap there, and I had, I volunteered on dog rescues at PTOs and neighborhood associations, but I guess none of those were really elected positions.
I hear you. Well, you're doing all this amongst owning your own company. Is that true as well? A small business? Yeah, am I right on that? I do
still own a small business, but it's really, really turned into a super small business.
I hear you. That's what I was going to ask, is how much of this is pretty much are you just your Melissa Sargent, not the politician versus, is that pretty much what it is when you get elected? It's pretty much takes over your life in a sense.
I think everyone does it a little bit differently. The business is still there. It's a business my dad actually and I ran it together.
Awesome.
And I was the owner on paper, or still am, and he's still there, plugging away, doing his thing. But there's been ups and downs in the process. Small business ownership isn't easy, and I've worked with my dad for many years in a couple of different businesses and a couple of different capacities, and I think that firsthand experience in working in a small business has been great, as well
Definitely.
As my mom has been great to help me figure out how to be a better legislator and public servant to the people in our community. But yeah, I put in 110% into the legislature. I know that there are other people, of the 132 people that serve in the legislature in Wisconsin, there's 33 in the Senate, and like I said before, 99 in the Assembly. And there's some that own other businesses, or they're attorneys or real estate people, or, everyone kind of does it their own way. There's not a formula, but certainly I'm putting in far more than 40 hours a week. I can guarantee that.
No doubt. You seem to be everywhere. I saw you were also doing like a weekly podcast, like a, what would you call it? Like a vlog, like a video log, early in the spring. You were updating anybody, who wanted to know what was going on in politics, which I think is really awesome. I would love a 5-minute video every week, or I don't know how often you guys all meet, but I would love a weekly update, from somebody I trust, because amongst this whole fake news era that we're in right now, it's really hard to know what's up, which is another reason, I reached out to you, because there's a lot going on with the legalization of marijuana in our state. And instead of just like talking about it, at the water cooler, and I want to know what is really happening, which is, a big reason why I reached out to you. But,
well, that's awesome. I was doing a weekly video update, couple minutes of what was going on in the Capitol building. And frankly, I'm glad to know that you appreciated it, because it felt like people weren't watching it. And it was taking a lot of time and energy, to put it together and figure out what it is that we were going to talk about, and getting it online and stuff. I mean, it seems like, it just takes a couple of minutes, but I think most people realize it takes a lot more than that. So, as things start speeding up again, I think just hearing you say that, and encouraging other people in the community to remember, when there are people that are doing something like that, let them know that you appreciate it, because it does take a bit. But yeah, the whole topic on legalization of marijuana in Wisconsin, it's super interesting, and it's changed a lot since I first introduced my first version of the bill.
Which was when? Like in 2013 or 11?
So it would have gone out I think in 13.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it went out again in the next session, and then I just put it out again this fall. So there's been 3 versions, and it's very unlikely that the bill will pass this legislative session based on statements that have been made by our governor and our attorney general, and frankly the majority of the folks that serve in the legislature as well. But I will say that the tides have really turned as far as folks in the community being more and more comfortable having these conversations. When I first introduced this bill, and it wasn't that long ago, people would like whisper, "I like the stuff you're working on," or, "I really support that one agenda item of yours." And it was kind of always under their breath, and kind of looking around to see if anyone else was watching us talk. And now people are just, the majority of folks are just happy to say it walking down the street. Melissa, we like the work that you're doing to legalize marijuana. And, frankly, there are some people that reach out to me that are terrified by this legislation. And I take their thoughts and concerns to heart very seriously as well, and see it as my job to weave together the folks that are really excited about it, the folks that have concerns about it, the people that are terrified about it, the science that we're learning more and more behind it, the economics that we're learning more and more behind it, whether, it's looking at Colorado or other countries, and taking all of that, which is complicated, and weaving it together to create a piece of policy that I believe very strongly will increase prosperity, safety, security, and freedom and liberty for everyone in our state, including our kids. Right now, the prohibition of marijuana in our state's getting us nowhere. In fact, I would say we're in reverse. It's making things less prosperous and less safe. It's causing people to have a lot of misconceptions about what the reality is. And, we got a lot of listening to do in order to make this change. And I'm excited that you're doing this podcast where we can talk about it a little bit more.
Well, one of your major things that you had mentioned a few times was that the biggest problem with marijuana in Wisconsin is basically the miseducation on it, and the lack of education basically as well. And not, I don't want to get, I don't know the scientifics behind it and what a cannabinoid is and if there's 4 here and 3 there or whatever, but I do know, and I know a lot of people, the majority of people do understand money. They understand that now that Colorado was the first example, and we had to wait a few years to see if it was going to work. And apparently they just have tons of money, and the economics seem to be there. They're also an example of did a rise and fall, or in other, like is marijuana a gateway drug? There's like a fall in all these other opiate categories and stuff like that. So it just seems to be this big model of what could happen, and everything seems to be positive so far, and it's been like 10 plus years or so. So one would think, okay, now that's there, and the state's making money, and there's some articles you can read that they're making so much cash that the state has to actually, they're having a bank vault problem, because so many people will go to the state, obviously from out of state, and don't want to use, like debit cards or electronics. So whatever, they just use cash and whatever. But a state having a problem of having too much money is a problem that I can get on board with, especially when it's just what I assume and what I think is becoming a small majority of people would assume also is a very harmless plant or drug or whatever. I don't even know the official term you want to call it, because it's a healing drug, but it's a plant. I mean, it's just, there's so much that can be done with it and utilized. And I'm reminded every morning when I drive to work on these roads in Wisconsin that are so freaking horrible. I'm wondering to myself, boy, how could the state just get a whole bunch of money to come into the state and fix these roads? Well, I think $2.4 billion was what Colorado said that they made the first year that they did it all, or legalized it. So I'm assuming that $2.4 billion coming into Wisconsin could at least help Highway 14 where I live. Like these are the things that I'm wondering. The other there's other topics that not just like, oh, it'd be great to just be able to smoke marijuana and not get in trouble for it. It's like all the money and all of the healing. I watch video after video of these poor kids, man, having these seizures, and it looks pretty darn real, and these parents have to film it, and like I want to like cry when I'm watching it, and they'll just put like this drip of like whatever it is, CBD oil on like their kid's tongue, and the kid stops having a seizure right there on video. And I don't think it's like a doctored up video, and the parents just basically pleading for anybody to just make this a few changes, just a few changes. And it sucks that it has to take a 90-page bill. I shouldn't say like, just that it has to take a bill, like a lot of work to get something done. And then like and I think Wisconsin, like you have to get it passed, and then somebody else has to, another vote has to have it passed, and then another one. Like it's quite a process, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge process. And, I have some people that get upset with me that it's not a just one line piece of legislation, a one line bill on one piece of paper that just says, we're done. Prohibition doesn't work. We're legalizing it. But when I look at what it is that's happened in other states, in other countries, I think it is really important that we think about, do you want to be purchasing something that has pesticides in it or is mixed with other substances? Probably not. That's one of the reasons why it is that we want to legalize it.
Correct.
So that we can regulate it, right? So then there's the language that has to do with that. Do we want to be talking to our kids and people that work with our kids about the truth behind marijuana? Because there's a lot of misinformation. So then there's an educational component there. Do we want to make sure that we're keeping our roads safe and people that are using heavy equipment and people that are, surgeons or, whatever the field is, are clean. Because quite frankly, impaired driving and people that are working in sensitive fields should not be impaired. And I don't have any patience when it comes to prescription medication or alcohol or over caffeination or lack of sleep, and I would add marijuana onto that list. And we address that. Our racial disparities through the criminal justice system. How are we going to address that? We need to talk about that. And we certainly need to talk about how it is that we transfer this product from a field to a processing center to a distribution center. How it is that people can be using it. So you end up with, a super complicated piece of legislation that's over 100 pages. And it hurts my head to read it. And I'm the one that has put it together with my amazing staff over the years, and taken the thoughts and the concerns of people like you, and hopefully some of your listeners reach out to us and say, have you put any thought into this? How have you addressed that? Because the next bill that comes out next session will probably look a little bit different, because we're learning more as more people are willing to talk to us. But certainly the prohibition of marijuana in the state of Wisconsin makes our state more dangerous. It makes us less prosperous. And study after study, report after report from folks, whether it's the federal government or state governments or other countries' governments, reading about how it is that once you legalize marijuana and you actually provide a structure that tax and regulates, so there are regulations associated with my bill, and I know that quite frankly pisses some people off that there's regulations for the bill, but man, there's rules about how fast you drive on the highway, and there's rules about our kids being in safety seats, and we're part of a society that believes in rules, and that it's a matter of figuring out how to have rules that are the most fair. And that's what I'm trying to come up with this piece of legislation. And it hasn't been easy, but I know that we're going to make Wisconsin be a better place once we cross the finish line with this piece of legislation. And frankly, watching what's been happening across our country, whether it's with the medicinal or the full legalization conversation, state after state after state, the genie's out of the bottle, man. It's going to happen.
You're correct.
It's just a matter of when it's going to happen and what it's going to look like. And I'm going to take what you said earlier. Like, I would rather have a homegrown solution for our state.
No doubt.
Rather than one that has been written and crafted by a company like Philip Morris.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to show a lot of interest in this conversation.
That's for sure. And, a lot of people, I put it out that I was going to be talking to you and stuff, and a few people wanted to make sure that it was known for whatever reason that it would be a good idea to be first, I guess, in the sense of, and then if you want to call it a race to legalize, versus Illinois or any neighboring state, to where any, a Wisconsin resident could just kind of go over state lines and just get it there and then give that state tax money, whereas if we were first, other, people from Illinois or anybody visiting or whatever would be here giving us tax money, and it would seem better to be first.
I couldn't agree more. And I also think that it's important that that people realize that every state's going to do it in their own way. And if we do it in a way, one of the reasons why it's been challenging to legalize marijuana in Wisconsin, and your listeners probably know this because I bet you they've done their research. All these other states, they have ballot referendums. So they go to the voting box, and there's a question on their ballot that asks, should we legalize marijuana, tax and regulate marijuana in the same way that we tax and regulate alcohol? It's probably similar to how the question would be worded. Mm-hmm. And in many states, that's enough to change the law. Jeez. But in Wisconsin, we are an advisory referendum state. We're not a ballot initiative state. So
which means
that it has to go through the legislature. So that means that my colleagues, that 132 legislators that I talked about, the 33 in the Senate and the 99 in the Assembly, all need to agree on exactly the same language that's going to move through. So if one of those houses, the Senate or the Assembly, even changes one word in the bill after it passes through, you have to start back again. It's like the Monopoly board. Go back to start and start again. So that's why it's even harder here in Wisconsin. But we would be the first that would do it through a legislative process if we would be able to get our stuff together. But frankly, even if we get it through the legislature, even if we somehow magically we can convince all these legislators, the majority of them being Republicans, that this is what we need to do, and they agree, we're going to have committee hearings and we'll have votes, and it's going to get through the legislative process. If it went to the governor's desk, he would veto this bill.
Yeah, that's what sucks.
And we have an attorney general who's like the top law enforcement officer for the state of Wisconsin who doesn't support the bill either.
Yep, that sucks too.
I need to take a minute to point out that a year from now, next November, there will be elections in the state of Wisconsin, and people are running for governor right now that are not Governor Walker, and people are running for attorney general that are not Attorney General Schimmel, and there are people running every seat in the assembly that I sit in will be up again next year in November, and half of the Senate seats will be up again. And frankly, what I hear from my colleagues and what I hear from people in the community is this isn't the issue that's going to change their mind on who it is they're going to vote for. So until this topic becomes one of those issues that's going to change their mind on who it is that they're going to vote for, we're going to continue to find ourselves in a situation where we cannot be first before Illinois. Illinois and Michigan and Minnesota, Indiana and Iowa, these surrounding Midwestern breadbasket states, just like us, they have more of a diverse makeup, and they're actually able to get bipartisan legislation through. So I need the people of Wisconsin to stand up and make this be an issue and ask tough questions and frankly support this bill, and know that if there's something in the bill that they're excited about or that bothers them or if they've got questions about it, that's my job as a legislator. And I will tell you, I spend hours and hours every week talking about this bill with people who don't even live in my district, because I know I'm carrying a topic on my shoulders that impacts people from all across the state. And it's an honor every time I get to talk to someone, even if they don't like the bill. It's an honor that I get to talk to them, because then it's a puzzle. How do I take care of their fears and their concerns in the next iteration of this bill? Or how do I help them understand that this bill already takes care of that so that they can support it?
What seems to be like the biggest pushback? Like, what's the first thing the most common first thing they're like, oh, this?
Gateway drug.
Yeah, that's stupid. I shouldn't say it like that, but that's just like,
I don't let my kids use that word.
Right. It just reminds me of the old reefer madness effect or whatever, you know. I mean, it's just, as an adult now, I'm 37, I can understand that that's just stupid. That's just an uneducated response is what
It is an uneducated response.
Which is another word for stupid. But
I've got a woman, she's a doctor, and she works in addiction. And she's been so generous with her time and her knowledge with the legislation. And, my conversations, I could sit down with her and I could talk with her, for 100 hours and still have more questions for her. But ultimately, there are some people in society that are they have an addictive personality. And the majority of the people in our society don't, but there are some people that do. And it's, somewhere less than 10% of the people in our society have predispositions to addictive personalities. And when you're talking about just that group of people, surely you can point out that those people use marijuana and they're addicted to heroin now. But you can also point out that those people eat peanut butter sandwiches.
Yes.
Peanut butter addictive. They drink water. Is water addictive? We have to break out folks that really suffer from addiction and figure out what is it that causes that. Is it a predisposition in their genetics? Is it a stress factor in their childhood? Is it post-traumatic stress reactions to an event that happened in their lives? But that section of people, we need to support them. What we are doing for those people is currently not working. But clearly, the legalization of marijuana and the prohibition of marijuana isn't making a difference, because they're addicted and marijuana is already illegal. It's that inherently it hasn't made a difference, and we're not going to see that number grow if we legalize marijuana. In fact, about 90% of the people in our society are not addictive, personality-wise. And, they should be able to choose how it is that they want to medicate themselves, how it is that they want to relax, how it is that we can be a more prosperous state and fund our schools and our roads, how it is that we can address our racial disparities. Absolutely, we have to have this conversation about addiction, but that's a science-based conversation. And quite frankly, too much policy these days is happening at the expense of talking about science, right? They don't want to talk about science. They don't want to talk about science when it comes to climate change or mining or flooding, right? And that all really bothers me. But then they want to somehow draw a connection between heroin addiction, which is tragic and has touched my family, as I'm sure it's touched yours and people who you love, and say that has something to do with this legislation. And absolutely it doesn't. So I would say that's the number one thing, the number one fear that people have. And I think we need to trust our scientists, and we need to listen to the doctors in our communities, and know that some Reefer Madness movie or beer commercial from the 70s and 80s with an egg frying in a frying pan,
I remember that,
drugs from the federal government, like that's not inherently what it is that we should be basing this conversation on.
I forgot all about that frying pan. This is drugs, and then the brain on drugs. I was a little kid looking at that like, what?
Yeah, what does that mean?
What? Yeah. I guess I don't want to fry my brain. Like, I guess
it's scary. Yeah, and
but, that's all
schools, and they're telling kids that they show them this list. Fifth graders in the Madison schools are being taught.
Oh, we had DARE coming to our school, and cops telling us this and that, and just instilling like this fear and stuff. It's weird. It's like, again, as an adult, as I've grown and I can look back on that stuff, that's just weird that they would do that to kids, or I subject kids to like that sort of training. I don't know. There's more that time could have been spent a lot on better things, I think.
I agree.
Having a cop come in there and instill fear in me.
Right. I mean, we could talk about what it means to be a good friend, right? Don't be a bully, and don't sexually assault people, and there's a lot of things we could really be talking about.
Right. Instead, we're going to waste an hour on that, but I'm sure like maybe the school probably got paid from some program or something. I don't know, some national thing. Who knows?
I bet you there was grant funding.
There was some sort of funding, right?
And a lot of what's covered in those, the COPS program is good. They talk about internet
for sure.
But really, that portion of it bothers me immensely. It does.
For sure. When you were talking about like putting a bill together, like you have put a bill together, like the process that your bill takes to become, law, the final, what's the end all? Like your bill, if it gets approved by everything, what do I call that then? It's like law?
A law or an act.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So is that process, and this is a little out of left field, but it's something that's come up in the news lately that kind of disturbs me, is the same process that happened with Wisconsin and a company called Foxconn? Is that kind of the same thing? Like, did it have to go through the same channels as your bill would have too?
Yes, it at 110%. It was through that process. However, this bill hasn't been written by special interest groups or billionaires from foreign countries, and hasn't been impacted by President Trump. This bill has come from the people of the state of Wisconsin. And frankly, I mean, it's funny you bring up Foxconn because, Foxconn legislation, it's going to cost the state of Wisconsin probably close to $3 billion in tax money, which is an impact on every single one of us. It's, each of us is going to be paying part of that. And none of us got to see that contract, even though our money that went into that. And it's going to create maybe 13,000 jobs, between 3,000 and 13,000 jobs on a good day. And, through the whole time of that debate, I was like wanting to raise my hand. And in fact, I was raising my hand. I was like, hey, call on me. I know how we can create tens of thousands of jobs in the state of Wisconsin. Hello, do you see my hand over here? I know how we can bring in tens of millions of dollars of tax revenue. Hey, I'm over here in the corner. I know how we can bring in billions of dollars of economic development. Hey, why don't you see me? How come you don't see me? And quite frankly, I think it brings us back to the beginning. I'm just an ordinary kid that grew up in Madison who's in the legislature now. I don't have this special interest groups under my wings pushing something through in the way that Foxconn legislation did. And we would be, if we legalize marijuana in the state of Wisconsin, we'll create more jobs, we'll have more tax revenue, and we'll have more economic benefits, 100% guaranteed, than we will with this tax giveaway. To a billionaire from another country. And that really concerns me. It really does concern me.
Yeah, just to make, and if I'm correct on this, I might be wrong, but I think that Foxconn's major thing that they make is like LCD screens or whatever,
But
which is
like the screen on your iPhone or on
which is a very dirty process. Yeah. And that actually, we've actually had to, it actually angers me when I say this out loud, but we actually had to change or tweak our EPA laws just so this dirty company can come in here and
we changed our state environmental laws, and the Republicans' reasoning behind that was, well, we still have the federal EPA laws, so we don't need to worry about changing our state laws. But quite frankly, Wisconsin is defined by its natural spaces,
right?
And our environmental heritage, and the Great Lakes are one so important, not just to us in Wisconsin, but in fact to everyone in the United States and across the globe, for access to clean water, fresh water. And you have a company that comes in that has environmental record that they have in other countries, and that is absolutely 100% terrifying, that we're rolling back protections rather than asking them to guarantee us with extra protections. Sure, come on in, but we're going to set the bar a little higher for you because we've heard of your track record. And I don't know if you heard this or not, but have you heard about their employment histories as well?
I've heard that it's a little shady, that's for sure.
They actually have suicide nets around the
Oh, yeah, I did hear about that.
What? If we were growing marijuana in Wisconsin, we would not need suicide nets around the fields. I can guarantee it. Yeah.
I did hear about that the conditions were so great that people would rather just jump off the top of the building. Well, it probably just makes you crazy working in I couldn't even imagine working in a factory like that. And actually, I hear, again, this is not fact, but I hear that it could actually be what's called like a dark factory, where it could actually be run without lights because most of it is automated.
Well, and that's one of the fears, because we don't know how many jobs there are going to be. The contract is going to be available to us soon, but we don't even know what it is that the factory is going to look like. And I think it's been on record that they would like to be very robotic, very automated.
Yes.
And that doesn't sound like it's very good for good paying jobs.
No. What it reminds me is of another person that I had on the podcast. He's from Colorado, and he was talking to me about when Amazon came into town, that not to like beat on Amazon, but that they had said that they're going to bring in like 5,000 or 8,000 jobs and everything, but these jobs were very highly educated. Like they wanted people that could program like internet and just do these very, it wasn't like a factory job, like you were going to create 20,000 or 8,000 jobs for the average everyday citizen. They neglected to say that it was going to be some highly technical jobs. And so basically, and this is what I fear, and I'm kind of correlating it, as if this is an automated site, the average Wisconsinite isn't going to be able to program, like this highly technical thing. So all the jobs are basically going to come from out of state. Other highly educated people are going to come in and fulfill those jobs.
Right. And that's another thing that we talked about when we were debating this bill, is how many of those people are actually not going to live in Wisconsin.
Right.
Yeah. Will be remote jobs. And, certainly Wisconsin is a big state, and that proposal will impact a very small portion of the state of Wisconsin, and it's not centrally located. So people in central Wisconsin and southwestern Wisconsin, northwestern Wisconsin, Door County, they're not going to benefit from this, and they are going to be ending up paying for it, and that's confusing. But if we would legalize marijuana, and we're actually able to produce and grow, cultivate, process, and distribute, as my bill specifies that all of that would be done by Wisconsin companies for the first 5 years.
Boom.
It would be a Wisconsin-based job creator. I know we would be creating, far more jobs than we are, and we wouldn't have to do a tax giveaway. We would actually be able to create an economy for people that currently live in the state of Wisconsin that are, like I was during that debate, raising their hands. I get people calling my office all the time, raising their hands, saying, "How do I get into this? What can I do? How do I get myself ready for when this legislation does pass?" And people are excited, and most of the people are excited about it because of opportunity to be more prosperous, not because they want to go out and get high.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a big deal of it too. When I asked what the big pushback was, I was expecting the gateway drug, definitely, or if people just thought it was just basically a bill for people to go out and get high legally, like just this.
Yes, that was certainly the first time I put the bill out. There was a lot of people that
was it.
Yeah, but that conversation seems like it's changed, because I think it's more normal for folks to admit, this is
Correct.
something that I've used or someone that I know has used, and I'm not a criminal and they're not a criminal, and the system's broken and we need to fix that.
Mm-hmm. It is broken, that's for sure. It's crazy that it's so broke that we tried to impeach the current governor and couldn't do it. I can't believe it. But I don't want to go into all of that because this is something else. But when does the bill come up again? Do you know already, or do you not know already?
So currently, this legislative session still goes. It goes into 2018.
Okay.
And we could still potentially have a public hearing in one or both houses. And again, that's a stretch because the committee chairs that would schedule those hearings are all Republicans, and people who have been outspoken against on the side of not supporting this legislation. But that doesn't mean that folks from all over the state shouldn't be calling them and saying,
correct,
"Hello, I would like to advocate that you schedule a public hearing for Representative Sargent's bill." So there's work that we can be doing in the Capitol building, encouraging those chairs to at least give us a public hearing. If they don't give us a public hearing, that doesn't mean that we're losing. It just means that we need to keep pushing. But the one thing that folks need to know when they call and ask for those public hearings is it doesn't even mean that they need to give us a vote. We're just saying we want to have a public conversation about this before the committee. We want to be able for them to ask us questions. We want to be able to present the topic. And then they can make a decision on whether or not they want to provide a vote opportunity. So I would suggest that folks work on that. But I think a big thing that we need to do is continue to educate people across the state of Wisconsin about why it is that they should, A, care about this, and B, why it is that they should be involved in government at all. I mean, I think so many people these days are so frustrated by politics in general, whether it's what it is that you're hearing in the federal level or here at the state level. So many people are feeling like what it is that matters the most to them, and when they speak out, and if they speak out, they don't have an impact. But I really want to encourage folks to know that they do have an impact. And we have been able to change the direction of policy at the state level as well as at the federal level through public interest campaigns from people writing and calling their legislators and weighing in on it. And we need to see that movement grow because according to a recent poll, I think it was a little over a year ago, Marquette Law School here in Wisconsin, we know that 59% of the people in Wisconsin, regardless of their party affiliation, believe that we should be taxing and regulating marijuana, removing the prohibition of marijuana in the way that we did in alcohol. And there was more recently a Pew poll that was done at a national level that it's way higher than that. So I think even in the last year, if they were to repoll Wisconsin, that number would increase. And for the first time ever, people who associate as hardline Republicans or farther to the right, over 50% of them also agree that we should be legalizing, not just for medicinal purposes, but legalizing marijuana for recreational and medicinal purposes, removing the prohibition. So again, politicians need to be educated, and the best people to educate them are everyday, ordinary people from our communities.
Man, it's so cool. I'm just nodding my head and smiling over here. It just seems like it's on the horizon. It's for the first time I truly believe that it is on the horizon, and let alone that could be a year, 2 years, or 5 or 6 more. Again, depending on a big time who's leading Wisconsin, who's the governor or whatnot. But it's nice to really think and truly believe that it is actually going to happen. I mean, why wouldn't it? It would be ridiculous why we would be like the last to do it. I don't know. Just
unfortunately we're the last to do a lot of things.
Yeah, but, that sucks.
I'd like to share with your listeners.
Yes.
So the current bill is LRB 2457, and that is a Legislative Reference Bureau number. That's what LRB stands for, and then it's 2457. And there's a couple ways that folks can learn more about that bill. One of them is they can go to my legislative website, which, if you go to Google and you type in Representative Melissa Sargent, you're going to find my state of Wisconsin website. And there's a button right on that website that says Legalize Opportunity in Wisconsin. And it has a copy of the bill. It has my press kit, the letters that I've written to the governor and to Republican leadership, some quick question and answers for people so they understand what it is that we're trying to do, as well as a co-sponsorship memo so that folks can, they know what it is that they're advocating for, and they can make sure that they're in support of it. And there's the other thing that people can do is they can go to the state of Wisconsin's legislative website, and they can track that bill.
Nice. That's cool.
So if they would type in that bill number, the legislative website will then, and they have to, kind of sign up for this account. So they would put their email address in there, and then they would type in keywords, and if they typed in marijuana or our LRB number, then they would, every time something changed with that bill, they would get an email on that.
I think that's pretty cool. That's something that I'll be doing immediately. That's something I always thought would be cool to have no matter what the bill was relating to. Just the ability to track it like I track a package from UPS. They give me the tracking
exactly.
number,
Very good analogy. That's exactly how it works.
That's awesome because I didn't even know that was possible. So that makes me super happy.
Yeah, that's there. And again, the LRB is 2457. We do have some sample media graphics that sample social media. Boy, I'm having a hard time talking. Sample social media graphics that folks, are welcome to download. And I'm super active on Facebook and Twitter. So, that's one way to get my attention. But certainly with, in-depth questions, I'd really encourage people to email the office so that we can have thoughtful responses. Social media is fun for
right.
kind of a quick back and forth. But if you've got an in-depth question or a personal story, it's great when people will call or email the office.
And, that's so true. Like, that's a legit statement because when I would hear the statement, talk to your local representative or call or write your local representative, I always thought that even if I did, no one would ever answer me. And when I reached out to you via email, I just didn't really expect an answer because I figured you guys are just super busy. No one's got time for me, whatever. And you guys responded immediately. So it just threw that whole little notion that I just thought that it was like something that they just said, write your local politician. That's a real thing. And I'm actually living proof that it actually works. So I can advocate for that for sure. Definitely the impact of just contacting your representative is very huge, and it's a absolutely real thing.
Yeah, I look forward to actually reading my emails and hearing who it is that's called the office. Usually when people call the office, they'll get someone who works in my office or an intern will answer the phone. But emails, I'm pretty likely to be the person who reads them, and then, we'll work on them together as a team and get responses out to folks. So I'm glad that you had a good experience with that.
I definitely did. I thought it was great. And it's going to be great the next time that I reach out to you in a few months, because when we can get you back on here and see where this conversation and see what it has evolved into since now.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. It's super important. And, it would be cool if some of the people that listen to the podcast reach out to you and share with you maybe some questions. And,
Yes,
we could answer some of the questions that people from your listening base have.
It sounds perfect. So I just want to go ahead and thank you, Melissa Sargent, for coming on the podcast, and we look forward to having you on again. Anything else that you want to add, or is that cool?
This was great. I really appreciate the fact that you reached out to me, and I think it's very important that people realize that this is something that we can do in Wisconsin, but it has to become a priority for folks. And I know we're all super busy and we've got stuff going on in our lives. But until we link arms and make this be a priority, we're not going to see that change, right? I can't do it on my own.
Right.
And we need to work together to make it happen. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Well said.
Your part in this.
Well said. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your time. So
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and end it right there then. Go ahead and enjoy the rest of your weekend here and your Thanksgiving coming up here.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right. Cool. You take care, Melissa.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. That's the show. I want to send a big thank you again to Melissa Sargent and to her staff. The whole process was amazing. Communications back and forth, everything was really, really cool. I couldn't have asked for a better setup, and I really appreciate everything that you guys did to make this happen and have Melissa get on the show. Looking forward to having her on again to see where the conversation has evolved, see where the bills evolve, see where we're at in this great state of Wisconsin. Anyway, that's the show. She's told you how to get a hold of her, how to voice your opinion. She loves to hear from you. I love to hear from you. You know how you can get a hold of me. I'm on Twitter at Chris Krerowicz. You can go ahead and check out my book at HaleySpaghetti.com. If you want to read the greatest book ever written, it's right up there with George R.R. Martin and all that goodness. What a horrible, shameful plug I'm throwing here at the end of this one. I'm such an idiot. Anyway, I don't know how to really sign out. If you've listened to all of these, which I'm sure you have, you know that I sign out differently every time because I suck at these things. So I don't even know what to do. I have nothing quirky or cool to say. So again, just super appreciative of how this all went. I got a big ass grin on my face. This is awesome. I love you all. The next show is going to be awesome too. If you thought I was the biggest Jose Canseco fan you've ever met, where do you meet this dude? I can't believe it. Tan Man, the baseball fan. I done told you too much because that's G14 classified, so if you're still listening, you better not tell anybody till it comes out or I'm going to hunt you down. That's a lie. I love you too much. Take care, guys.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Bottom left.